Hi folks, it's school holiday time, and so it's time to be back in the shack again. This episode is going to be devoted to broken rigs, namely the TS520, the Kenwood TS520. It's a venerable old rig, late 1970s rig. It's nearly as old as I am, and we're also going to try and get the Rockmite clone transmitting at the correct wattage. Now, I did manage to get the kit going on receive, and it was giving me a little bit of output power, and then the output transistor blew up and stopped working. Swapped in a BD139, much less grunty transistor. I'm getting about 50 milliwatts of power out of that. When I double them up, they work for a little while and then release their smoke. So I've sacrificed a lot of BD139s on that little Rockmite rig. In the meantime, this has arrived, and this was from a Hybrid Restore store, and the Hybrid Restore site that I went to has lots of information on how to repair this type of hybrid rig. And by hybrid they mean it's got valve finals and everything else is solid state, but it's got 3 tubes in it, a driver and 2 final tubes to make the magic happen on transmit. And so I ordered from these guys here a cage repair kit which had the inductor and the capacitors that tend to die or tend to get very, very tired with time. And I also ordered their resistor kit. And so we're going to install those bits and pieces in the TS520 and see if we can get it working. And we're also going to do something really radical on the Rockmite, which may or may not work. But I'll take you along on the trip, and for people who are knowledgeable about RF engineering, they can probably have a good old giggle about how incompetent this all is. Let's go. Well, it's time to try and resurrect the TS520. We've had another cathode resistor failure, and I was waiting for some parts to arrive from hybridrestore.com, and they've finally arrived. And I'll show you those parts shortly, but we need to get this rig unplugged and on the test bench. Okay, we have done this a few times now. Each time I do it, I have to be very mindful of the fact that, like I have said at the beginning of this video, this rig has extreme voltages in it, and you really want to be careful with anything you do inside it. And so I have to be very, very mindful of not getting blasé about jumping in here, because I think it's important to give it the respect that it's due. So I will be proceeding, as always, with due diligence and caution so that I don't get zapped by it. Top cover. Little bit of cage fighting. Okay. We have popped those plate caps off, removed the 2 final tubes. They will go back in shortly. They're somewhere safe so I don't wreck them. Now down here we've got the cage replacement kit. This one's marked 103, and that's a 0.01 microfarad. This is the 102. That's a 2 kilovolt capacitor. This is a 3 kilovolt capacitor. I'm of the understanding that all the signal actually goes through this, so it cops a real beating when it's being used in the rig. That capacitor has a value of 0.001, and this is the choke. So you can see down the bottom here where I'm pointing. I'll just try and get in a bit closer. We can have a better look. Please pardon the hand-carried filming. I'm not going to do this for long. I know it makes people feel really sick, but this little choke here, encapsulated choke, is going to replace this little 6.8 microhenry choke that's here. This capacitor here that's very black and charred, it gets a lot of heat from the tubes. That's going to be replaced with this blue one here. And up here, this capacitor here, which also looks like it's really copped a beating, which is the one that takes a lot of the signal to, well, it takes all the signal to the tube, is being replaced with this little itty bitty one here. And it's got the right ratings and everything else. So a lot of these modern components seem to be a lot smaller, and I'm hoping they're as rugged. I think with time things have gotten a lot smaller and still can do the same thing. So fingers crossed. And of course, these sockets for the final tubes, I hit them up with a little bit of cleaning solvent, which is probably a good thing to do. Over the years, there's probably a lot of crap that's gotten in there as well. So hopefully once this is all done, I'll flip the thing over and we will get onto the bottom and do those resistors down the bottom. Bit of a progress report. Listen to the Solder Smoke podcast while I'm doing this. Is wonderful. Hey Google, pause please. Awesome. I don't know if you can see it in there, but that's the inductor, and the little capacitor is in here as well, and we've installed that other capacitor, and we've broken out the high wattage iron because there was a lot of solder and a lot of metal, so I was worried that they weren't going to take. So now we're going to plug our tubes back in, flip this baby over, put the cage shield back on, flip this baby over and do the resistors. And that is our two cathode resistors. There's a couple of 100 ohm resistors that could be replaced. I've checked them value-wise, they seem all right, but I might change them as well. Hey, better safe than sorry.
M0MTV has a video out just yesterday on building Bantab's capacity. Just watch the first 2 minutes of it. So
Case Hardware, 20 screws, and we've already lost one. God, I'm hopeless. We're going to pop some new screws in this. Should be good.
Yeah, and it's been really fun.
They're pretty gnarled. I've had to come in and out of this box about 100 times. Hey Google, pause please. We have just started the school holidays, so I'm hoping I get a little bit done. The original plan was to build the 20-meter rig, but I'm already sort of halfway through with the Rockmite, having good fun playing with that, although it's refusing to cooperate at the present moment. And I've got parts for an ugly build on a double sideband 80-meter rig, and I know that my mate Chris has said, build a real rig, build a single sideband rig, and I am certainly planning on doing just that, but I like to start simple and then come up to complex. And the great thing about a double sideband rig is that you don't need to use an IF. You can have frequency agility. I mean, there isn't a design for a single sideband rig that's very simple by Drew Diamond in his projects for the Radio Amateur that uses a crystal ladder filter, but it only transmits on one frequency. And I would like to have an option for numerous frequencies. That would be a better situation. So I'm going to do an ugly build on a voice unit that will marry with my chocolate box direct conversion receiver. And that way I'll have accomplished a QSO, totally homebrew CW, and also doing a voice double sideband conversation. So that is the plan for this holidays, to get some building done. And you know, maybe I'll get all of that done and more. Maybe make a start on the OzQRP sideband rig, because that's something that I'd like to also have a crack at. Time will tell. Well, folks, I like to be brutally honest about how things are going with this channel. I don't like to make it all unicorn farts and rainbows. So I'm going to tell you, homebrewing's a fun thing to do, but it's also at times a very frustrating thing to do. And I am starting to get a real collection of parts that have died in the TS520. You can see here on the side of that tube, there's a giant crack. And when the air gets in, it's kind of like the smoke leaving solid state electronics. Now, you may be wondering what happened to the tubes. And when I got it all back together again, the rig was transmitting like it has done the last 3 times. And everything was going well. I made the rather risky decision to go higher frequency. We went up to the 28 megahertz band, the 10 meter band. Stuff was happening there. I wanted to get on there. Tuned it up into a dummy load. We were still having the low power output, so the cage restoration hadn't changed that at all. I have a sneaking suspicion that the rig has been converted to 11 meters, 27 megahertz CB band on one of the sections of 28 megahertz. It's had people in there doing weird and wonderful things that they shouldn't be doing, so that probably doesn't help the situation. Also, it seems to always do the same thing, which is things are working okay for a while and then bang, the cathode resistors go. On this occasion, that's exactly what happened, except that after I heard that, quite familiar now, pop of the cathode resistors going, I heard another rather large bang, and that was the tube going. So maybe all of my problems have been about these tubes going soft. That's what I'm going to find out. Unfortunately, the new inductor that I put in the cage also decided to fail, so I kept the old one. The old one didn't look like it had any problem. And it actually looks a lot more robust than the one that I replaced it with. So we've put that back in again. That is the sad story of the TS520. I have ordered some new tubes and they will be going in, and I'm not going to give up on this rig because I love it too much. Also, talking about, while we're on this subject of failure, I found a bag of transistors that I didn't know I had. And they were TS8050s, which is the ones that are actually being used in the Rockmite and the Pixie. So I dug up my Pixie failure, and once again, this thing worked for a little while and then went kaplooey, and then I get frustrated and I do things I shouldn't do. So I tried changing the transistor, the 8050 that's in that. It still didn't behave, so we gave it a crack, and we also tried to do lots of stuff. And you can see on the back of that board there, I've put a couple of new 8050 transistors, and I replaced some components that were charred and blackened from the explosion. And we tried to get it going because I thought it was a sign from God that maybe this thing was actually going to work. Well, spoiler alert, it's not working. So look, we put an IRF 510 in there for a little while, and we had a biasing circuit, and I managed to get a couple of watts out of it for a little while, and then smoke came out. And so look, we've had a lot of fun playing around with that Rockmite, but we've decided that's enough. We're putting it to bed now. I have started the double sideband rig. I've been building a double balance mixer. I had some matched diodes from when I built the direct conversion receiver, and I'm having a great old time. So next video, hopefully we'll have a successful project, a double sideband transmitter. Present now, I seem to be blowing up more things than I fixed, but that's the joy of homebrew. Sorry that this is a bit of a drowner in that respect, that there's nothing that's actually working. We will soldier on, and hopefully in the next video you will see a beautiful TS520 behind me that's happily transmitting with brand new tubes, and a double sideband rig that's working, and we will be back on the straight and narrow. Thank you for sticking around right to the end of this video, and I shall see you in the next episode of The Art of Engineering Failure. 7-3.